Hello, hello, hello out there. Out of focus already. Okay, welcome to this late night astrology reading or astrology forecast of the middle of October 2018. I'm going to take care of a few preliminary things here while people show up. Give people a chance to find this. Yes, I'll be going over the astrology to the best ability of the middle of October 2018. And then I'll also talk about some other upcoming astrological events, and I will take any questions. So let's just go right over here. Going to tweet that I'm live talking about astrology. Bear with me, please. Just figuring out what I should put in this tweet. If you're watching the saved version of this, feel free to fast forward to when things get more interesting. I'm just making the preparations right now while people show up. Never be afraid to fast forward. Saying that I'm live talking about the astrology of mid-October 2018. Come watch. Come watch. And then just put a link. Now, hopefully it's not too late for people who are interested in astrology or just interested in watching the stream regardless, because it is rather late at night right now, but that's what often ends up happening with me is I'm awake late into the night. I'm a creature of the night, it would seem. I'm live talking about the astrology of mid-October 2018. Come watch. Okay, we're going to tweet that. We're going to make sure that posted properly. Okay, there it is. And now we shall begin. So we're starting off here, the time of this recording. It is October 16th, sorry. October 16th, 2018, 12:39 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The moon is in Capricorn, and so things have that rather serious, real vibe to them. Things are very real right now. And the moon is about to align with Pluto, which will become exact at 4:53 a.m. Eastern Time. And so that will be in effect mainly in the early hours of October 16th. And so that's the activation of all those deep, dark Pluto things, all the unconscious things in our mind. Could be a great time for exploring the unconscious, exploring the emotional depths of yourself, or perhaps even others. Could be a great time for shadow work, perhaps. And it's activating all that is powerful within us. Now it's just the moon aligning with it, so it is kind of a temporary aspect, but indeed, you can expect that. And moving further here, let's see, I'm just going to keep going over the astrology until, or like as I'm waiting for people to show up, because that way, when people watch the saved version of the video, they can sort of hear it from the start. Well, hey there, Panic Treasure. Thank you so much for joining. Boo, indeed. We're just talking about the astrology of October here, as you can probably see, and well, we're also going to go over some other upcoming astrological events, and I'm going to take questions at any point, really. So that's where we stand right now. As for, let's just go to later today / tomorrow, October 16th, 12 p.m. Eastern Time. The moon is still going to be in Capricorn, so things are going to have a rather serious vibe to them. And it's going to square the sun, and so we might see a bit of conflict between our emotions and our ego later today / tomorrow, like a sort of conflict in that area. So my advice for today / tomorrow, the 16th, would be to really try to let your emotions and your conscious mind flow together, you know, try to keep those in harmony, I would say. What else? The moon will also sextile Jupiter a little later on, and so that is gonna amplify all of our like positive thinking, our sense of expansion and optimism, bigger, better, more. We're gonna have a sense of wanting to expand things. However, the moon is still in Capricorn at this time, and so things are still going to take on a somewhat serious vibe. But moving on from there, on October 17th, 12 p.m. Eastern Time, the moon will have moved into Aquarius, and so things will take on a more detached, intellectual sort of vibe. And let's see, what aspects is it making? Early that day, on the 17th, the moon will be square to Uranus, and so there may be some sudden, shocking, unexpected developments, sudden insights or revelations. Let's see if I can just find real quick about when that is. Just after 5 a.m. Eastern Time on the 17th, so things might be a little crazy on the morning of the 17th. And let's see, other than that, I don't know, I don't want to be overly detailed because these are just kind of transient aspects with the moon, but I guess I'll just mention some of these things briefly. Like, the moon will square Venus later that day on the 17th, right around, I can find it real quick, right around roughly 7:45 in the evening. And so that could put some stress around our likes and dislikes, like trying to get the things that we want that day, trying to being able to feel in harmony with what we want and things of that nature. Could be a bit challenging to get what we want that day and or to enjoy what we want, or particularly that evening, I would say. So the 17th is like early in the day. There could be some sudden shocking developments with the Uranus square. Late in the day, in the evening, there could be some difficulty in sort of getting what we want and enjoying the things that we like to enjoy. However, the advantage that we have is that the moon's in Aquarius, and so we should feel rather detached that day. So, you know, sort of intellectual detachment, so that's fairly helpful. By the way, if anyone has any questions as I'm going through here, feel free to ask. Next, on October 18th, the moon will line up with Mars that day in the morning hours at about, let's see here, just before 8 a.m. And so that's going to have us feeling much more aggressive, much more impulsive. Interestingly enough, when this conjunction happens, this Moon-Mars conjunction on October 18th, it's squared Mercury, and that says to me that we could be looking at the likelihood of fights and arguments, because whenever you have like Mercury square Mars, that is a very high possibility, because Mercury is the mind and Mars is everything from aggression to war and other things as well. But so we already have the Mercury-Mars square going on, making fights and arguments more likely, conflict. But we also have the moon aligning with Mars, adding this strong emotional pull to it. So definitely on the 18th, my advice is to be careful of fights, arguments, conflicts, things of that nature. However, if you channel that energy creatively, if you can harmonize it, that can be great for, I would say, a lot of mental activity. Mars energizing Mercury, the mind. So, and with the moon being in Aquarius, intellectual detached Aquarius. So I would say on the 18th, that would be a great day for any activity involving the mind and anything that you need to think clearly for, like think rationally for. Maybe I shouldn't say think clearly, because with the involvement of Mars, that could like almost have you feeling more aggressive than usual, but still relatively speaking a good day for logical thinking and a lot of mental activity, I would say. So let's see here. My camera is still in focus. Good. And where should we go next? Let's see what else the moon is doing that day. Hopefully people find this astrology stream interesting. Like, I'm still kind of figuring out what people seem to like the most and not like the most. So I guess we'll just have to see how it goes. So yeah, I would say that's the biggest event for the 18th. So let's move on now to the 19th, which early that day, 5:47 a.m. Eastern Time on the 19th, we have Mercury trining Neptune. So the 19th, like that whole day, our mind is going to harmonize with our imagination. So this is some really good stuff. The 19th will be a very interesting day energetically, and there's some other stuff happening here too, but we're just going to kind of go through one piece at a time and then put it together. So with Mercury harmonizing with Neptune, any creative act involving, or creative activity involving the mind would be that much more likely to be successful that day. The day might have a bit of a dreamy vibe at times. However, the moon is still in Aquarius, so we're not going to be completely off in dreamland or whatever on the 19th. We're still going to have an amount of intellectual detachment. And let me just see what else here before we move on. I would say would be a good day for anyone who's involved with any creativity that also uses technology. So say film, or even making YouTube videos or doing live streams on the 19th, because you got Mercury, the technology, and you've got Neptune, the imagination and creativity, you've got those harmonizing that day in a harmonious trine. And so October 19th, especially early in the day, but really all day, will be advantageous for that. And that's, again, that perfects the Mercury-Neptune trine at 5:47 a.m. October 19th Eastern Time. So later that day, there is a Mercury-Mars square. Now, I mentioned this a little bit ago, but this is the day that it perfects, and so we're still kind of within this energy. So if you're not careful on this day, you might find that instead of exercising this energy creatively, you might end up not quite being able to tell what is real because Neptune's involved, and maybe starting arguments, or someone starting an argument with you based on incorrect information, because Neptune has both positive and negative aspects. There are a lot of planets that people will say are mostly negative, but I don't really think that's accurate. But one of Neptune's negative aspects is that it can like obscure things, it can confuse things, it can hide things, it can make things very unclear. And when we have Neptune, Mercury, and Mars, the danger is that there could be assumptions made or like calculations made that are just not correct. And with Mars, you know, the angry planet, that's going to make people angry based on information that is not accurate. So yeah, like I said, the 19th will be a very interesting day because we don't just have one thing going on that day. We've got multiple things going on. I mean, most days you do, yes, but you know, this is more than the typical day, I would say. So be careful of that. But other than that, again, use it for creativity and the imagination and stuff like that, I would advise. Other than that, that day, let's see, is there anything? Wait, let me check on my stream here. We're still in focus, that's good. The moon will be square to Jupiter that day as well. That's something that I ought to talk about. And that will perfect right around 7:45 a.m. Eastern Time. And so when the moon is square to Jupiter, most of the time I would say this isn't really that bad of a thing, even though it's a square, which is like tension or disharmony. Because when Jupiter is involved, there's such positive energy inserted into things that it's likely to be, I don't know, usually it turns out fairly well, but I suppose if there's any danger here when the moon is square to Jupiter, as it will be on October 19th, it's the danger of going too far, because Jupiter is bigger, better, more. And so when you have more of something and it becomes more and more and more, eventually you can have too much of a good thing, or you can have maybe even an overinflated ego or a sense of confidence or something like that. But since it's to the moon, I think if anything is going to be too much that day, it might be emotions, particularly with the other aspects going on that day. So yeah, October 19th, just expect October 19th to be sort of all over the place with, you know, these powerful aspects going on that day. Like, it's nothing I would really worry about too much. If it was, I would say so, but it's just there's so much going on that day, astrologically speaking. So, oh yeah, before we move on here, I wanted to talk about also the more immediate aspects tonight, which I have a list of here, because some of these are rather rare, but they're interesting, or I should say they're rare, they're rarely used. Anyway, tonight at 12:09 a.m., so less than an hour ago, we had the moon sextile transiting Jupiter. Now, septiles, these are fateful aspects that I guess a lot of astrologers don't use, but I think they're becoming used more and more. And with Moon septile Jupiter, full disclaimer, I'm still learning about septiles and quintiles. There's still, stuff I have left to learn about these. I just started looking into these aspects relatively recently, like a month and a half ago or something. But I would say with Moon septile Jupiter, we're talking fateful events, maybe even otherworldly events that have to do with our emotions and with Jupiterian things. So a sense of expansion and knowledge and positive thinking and stuff like that. I could even manifest as well, not surprisingly, a live stream like this tonight where I decided to talk about astrology because we're talking something out of the ordinary or perhaps fateful, though when it's just the moon, maybe it's not as fateful. But we're talking something like that with knowledge, Jupiter, knowledge, and thus we have the astrology here. Now at 1:28 a.m., so coming up here in literally just over half an hour, we have the moon quintile transiting Chiron. So let me think how I want to explain this exactly. Moon quintile Chiron, I would say, is a creative aspect, a creative connection between our mood or emotions and Chiron, the wounded healer, the wounded healing function within us. And so tonight, all over the world, more or less, I would say, there could be a significant amount of finding creative ways to heal wounds and stuff like that, to heal emotional wounds, basically. And one of the key ways, and like I don't want to get into this extensively because I'm really wanting to stick to the main aspects here, but Chiron represents the wounded healer function in all of us, where what we do, and it's like us humans are psychologically built like this, is we will literally try to heal the wounds in other people that are a match to our own wounds. Like if someone has experienced something that we have gone through, we will try to heal them in order to heal ourselves. And that's represented by Chiron in astrology, and that's being activated tonight just by the moon. So it's only going to be active for maybe a couple of hours, but still it's active now. And so it could be quite interesting, I must say. Let's see what else is worth mentioning here. Hello, Ryan. I see you in the chat there. Hope you're doing well. We're just talking about the astrology of tonight right now and some other things. So another aspect, or the very next transit tonight at 3:16 a.m. is the moon biseptile Uranus. And so a biseptile is basically just another, I don't even know how to explain this. Is if you took a septile and you doubled the amount of degrees. So septile, biseptile, triseptile, they're, as far as I know, more or less the same, at least in terms of what they mean. So moon biseptile transiting Uranus. Well, we've got Uranus, the planet of sudden shocking developments, and we've got septiles, fateful otherworldly events. And so, especially as we get closer to 3:16 a.m., certainly not everyone, but a lot of people around the world, and maybe even right here on this live stream, who knows if we're still live then, I don't know if we will be or not, we might see some crazy, unexpected events. Now, they won't be too crazy, because again, it's just the moon, but, we might see some weird, like off-the-wall stuff later on tonight, especially around 3:16 a.m. Eastern Time, which would be 12:16 Pacific. So stay tuned. Should be interesting to see what happens. Now, as for anything else more immediate, let me just see here. See, the moon's going to be making some more aspects. I guess everything else at this point is too far away and too transient to talk about. So we're going to go back to the astrology of this month. Also, remember, if you guys have any questions about this, feel free to ask about this or anything else, really. So we left off on October 19th. Like I said, October 19th, expect that to be a crazy day. Energy could be all over the place, multiple things aspecting each other at the same time on October 19th. So be ready for that. Now, on the 20th, the moon will have moved into Pisces, and so the mood is going to take on a much more emotional, gentle, perhaps even mystical or spiritual vibe that day, October 20th. And let us see what the moon is aspecting that day, because nothing else is going on. The moon will trine Venus early on, which is currently in its retrograde phase through Scorpio. So that's very beneficial. Moon trine to Venus. Venus is always blessing everything that she touches, basically. So a lot of harmony with our likes and dislikes. October 20th, especially that morning, could be a time that we are able to enjoy the things that we like, the things that we love, enjoy things of great beauty and stuff like that. So yeah, that morning is definitely shaping up to be a very nice and enjoyable morning. Also, what happens not long before that is the moon will be sextile to Saturn, and as this is happening, Venus is moving into a sextile with Saturn as she's going backwards in her retrograde phase. And so, let me just see if I can sort of find the exact time here. It'll actually be extremely early on October 20th. We're talking, where is it? Roughly 12:30 a.m. Eastern time, but it should still more or less be in effect later into the morning. Moon sextile Saturn, we're talking about things feeling more stable emotionally and giving structure to things. And so far on October 20th, a lot of good energy indeed. What website did I use to find your chart? Well, there's actually a couple of options. If you want just a simplified look at things, go to planetwatcher.com and just type in your birthday and time if you have it. But what you can also do if you want something more in depth is just Google rising sign calculator and find one of the sites that lets you do that, basically calculate your rising sign and just fill out the information. And that will also, in addition to telling you where your sun and moon and planets are, it'll tell you what your rising sign is, which is hugely important when it comes to knowing more about your personality and your own personal astrology and stuff like that. And it'll also, as long as you're able to provide your date of, or your exact time and location that you were born, so not just the date you were born, but the time and location, it'll let you know what your houses are. And if you look deeper into astrology, that's another huge amount of information that you can utilize when learning about your astrological data. So planetwatcher.com and pretty much any site that lets you calculate your rising sign. Just Google rising sign calculator. So that's what I would recommend. Now, as for later in the day on October 20th, let me just take a look here. Well, actually, this is worth talking about. Before we go there, let's go back. See, I'm just doing this live. I, haven't prepared too many things. It's possible for me to miss things. Let's go back to October 19th. There's yet another aspect that I missed that day, and it's going to perfect shortly before 6 p.m. And that is right after the moon enters Pisces. It will sextile Uranus, which is currently retrograde at the very beginning of Taurus. And so, first of all, on the 19th, hang on. By 4:30 p.m. on the 19th, the moon will have gone from Aquarius to Pisces, and so things are going to take on a much more emotional and like spiritual, mystical vibe around that time on the 19th, so by 4:30 p.m. And soon after that, and it looks like it's going to be, yes, like not long before 6 p.m. on October 19th, the moon will sextile Uranus. And so this is a harmonious aspect, harmonious sextile. And so as if that day's energy hadn't been sort of all over the place enough, there can be new sudden insights around that time, sudden revelations, sudden realizations. It's less likely to be anything unwanted because we're talking a harmonious aspect, harmonious sextile. But it is still Uranus, and so, something crazy might happen on the evening or thereabouts of October 19th. So just wanted to throw that in there before I forgot. Okay, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, you're very welcome, Ryan. And I'm glad that my live streams could help you. Yeah, it's very interesting, astrology. I mean, I don't know how it is for other people, but as soon as I got kind of a whiff of it, I couldn't get enough of it, and I just kept studying more and more. And like the more of it you study, the more interesting it becomes. At least that's more or less my experience. Like the more you study and the more you understand, the more meaningful it is, I would say. Let's see. Yay, we're up to 3 viewers. This is late at night, so I wasn't sure what would happen, but we are getting some viewers. It makes me happy. Thank you, guys. Anyway, so October 20th now, that evening, just after 8 p.m., the moon will align with Neptune. Oh, hey, what's up, Smokey? Oh, that's okay, Panic. Just thank you just for watching for as long as you have. That's really awesome. Hopefully I can go live earlier in the day in the future, but we'll just have to see what happens with that because my schedule can be a little all over the place. But so October 20th, just before 8 p.m., the moon lines up with Neptune in Pisces, and so the mystical, spiritual realms of Neptune are going to be activated that evening. And of course, as I mentioned, the moon's already in Pisces at this time, and so we're already sort of in that mood. And when the moon aligns with Neptune around 8 p.m. that evening, it's going to be amped up even more, basically speaking. And what's also interesting about this, however, see, this is where things get really delicious, or even more delicious, in my opinion, because of the other ongoing things at the same time. So as the moon lines up with Neptune, well, Mercury, that we talked about earlier, is still in a trine with Neptune. Mercury has reached 16 degrees of Scorpio. Neptune's at 14. That trine is still very much in effect. And so as the moon aligns with Neptune and they're both in a trine with Mercury, it's like that imaginative, creative, like mind harmonizing with our imagination becomes even more intense and emphasized. And the moon, of course, adds a very emotional element to it. And it's almost like one could say on October 20th, particularly in the evening, a lot of people might find themselves in the mood to be creative, to exercise their imagination, and especially, stuff that like imaginative or creative acts that involve the mind and or technology. So things that involve, well, I'm trying to think of a good example. Anything involving computers, anything involving film, especially Neptune rules film, even anything like this, doing a live stream or making a YouTube video, all that kind of stuff that harmonizes the mind with the imagination. Excellent energy for that the evening of October 20th. Let's see what people are talking about. The X-Files theme. That's a good theme. That's a good theme. Oh, thank you for telling me that, because I can see the chat, but I can't see the camera when I'm looking at the transits. Like I'm able to pull it up in a separate window so I can still see the chat, but I can't see the transits. Yeah, dude, I hope that I don't know if they are, but I hope X-Files comes back with another season, season 12. Like that's some good stuff, I must say. I never did finish season 9 though. I should probably do that. Anyway, let's see, what else do we have here? Anything else on the 20th before we move on? Let's see, there is something else, but I'm not sure if it's more the next day or that day. Let's just see. Okay, early the next morning, and we're talking wait. We're talking just before 6 a.m., or maybe a little bit more, like maybe 5:45 a.m. roughly, on October 21st, we have the moon sextiling Pluto. And so, again, this is a harmonious sextile, and so it's like, all of that deep and dark Pluto stuff, the unconscious mind and deep dark emotions are being harmoniously activated by the moon, which is like our mood. And so I would say that's a great time for exploring those realms, exploring, the dark side of life, and like exploring our emotions, and even things involving power and things involving sexuality, and exploring psychology, perhaps, all of those sorts of deep explorations. And let's just see here. And to sort of jump ahead, but not quite jump ahead a bit, like what's also happening at this time that makes this excellent for psychological things and like doing shadow work and stuff like that is Mercury is moving into a sextile with Pluto, like on the other side of the area, the other side of the zodiac wheel here, whatever you want to call it, as the moon is doing it. So we have Mercury and Scorpio forming a sextile to Pluto and Capricorn, while the moon forms a sextile. The moon in Pisces forms a sextile to Pluto and Capricorn. And so Mercury sextile Pluto, that is great for things like shadow work, things like talk therapy, things for like writing down your emotions, or like things like that, exploring the deep dark hidden realms with your mind. And again, this occurs early on October 21st. However, the Mercury Pluto aspect doesn't perfect until another couple of days or so, and so we'll get into that. But yeah, just know that October 21st, especially early that morning, a lot of that deep, dark stuff will be activated, but in a positive way at that time. And also, when that happens, the moon is still within the range of a trine to Mercury, and so all that is, all that mental stuff is being activated in a harmonious way as well. And so that's some very good energy there. Let's see, what are you guys talking about? Have a time I want to schedule for streams. Most likely I'm going to continue going live pretty late, like right here, or I mean where I am right now. It's 1:16 a.m. and I don't know, I tend to be awake late at night, and plus, like, before I go live, there's a lot of preparations I want to make, so it's not like I wake up at 10 p.m. or something. There's like various things I want to do first. So I don't know, unless my sleep schedule shifts around, which is always possible, that always happens sooner. I would say look for my streams around anywhere from 10 p.m. till 1 a.m., I suppose. That is what I would say for that. So if you just joined, we're talking obviously about astrology. I'm talking about the middle of October. I'm also going to talk about other interesting upcoming astrological events. And if you have any questions about this or anything else, I will be taking those as well. So let's see here. No problem, Smokey. Clocked like almost 400 kilometers today alone on my car. Wow. Ryan was doing a lot of driving today. That sounds like a lot of fun. Now, where were we? October 21st a.m. Let's see what happens later that day. Later that day, the moon will trine Jupiter, and this will occur around roughly 7:30, 7:45 p.m. Before 8 p.m. So that evening, moon trine Jupiter, I would say bigger, better, more, because it's Jupiter. I would say a lot of positive thinking, a lot of sense of expansion and optimism and stuff like that. Great time for acquiring knowledge, for expanding your mind, things of that nature. Reading you guys' comments. Oh yeah, if anyone would like me to go over their astrology chart, I can do that once we're done looking at the astrology of the middle of October. So, Smokey, if you want me to take a look at your chart, I can do that. Okay, that time works for you. That's good. October is lit. I was born the day before Halloween, 30th. Oh, that's awesome. So you are a Scorpio then. All right. Got some more people here now. Awesome. I feel like every time I say something like that, though, people leave. I'm gonna like jinx myself. So October 21st, 8 p.m. We got moon trine Jupiter. That's very good energy. Honestly, it looks like that whole day of October 21st is looking to be a very good, delicious day. At least the energy is, much easier to work with that day. So if you're planning anything fun, it's also a Sunday, so I guess a lot of people will be off of work. If you're planning anything fun, I would say plan it for October 21st. There's a lot of really positive, harmonious energy that day. I am indeed the weatherman, the astrology weatherman. Okay. So another interesting thing that happens around this time, let's just get the exact time for it here. Okay. We have aspects between Chiron and the sun, and I'm kind of unsure which to go over first here, but just bear with me. Let's see. So, first of all, the moon lines up with Chiron at around it's going to make me type it in, isn't it? Moon lines up with Chiron just before 1 a.m. on October 22nd. And so that's going to activate the wounded healer function within us. And so it's interesting because October 21st, there's all this like positive and harmonious energy going on. But then around 1 a.m., or well, just kind of like later that night into early the next day, I suppose, the emphasis is going to be put upon unhealed wounds, both in ourselves and in others. And in addition to that, this is going to be quincunx, the sun in Libra, the very end of Libra, which could add a complication. But if you guys don't mind, I'm going to turn my heater down real quick because it's getting hot as hell in here. All right, we're still looking good. Blurry. Not blurry. Okay. So we all will drink some Nuka-Cola that day. Let's see what I did there. Wait, why am I not getting that? I know what Nuka-Cola is, but why am I not getting that? How cold is it here? Well, it's currently 5 degrees Celsius. I use Celsius even though I live in America. But that in Fahrenheit is, well, let me just find out real quick. Good. Someone liked my tweet saying I'm live. Maybe they're here. Okay, Google. What is 5 degrees Celsius in Fahrenheit?
5 degrees Celsius equal 41 degrees Fahrenheit.
Well, you heard it here. 41 degrees Fahrenheit. Because we all will be healed. Oh yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense. But I was thinking more like, are we going to be like irradiated or? Yeah, I definitely need my heater or I would freeze. And this hoodie is quite nice too. So October 22nd, just before 1 a.m. indeed, the moon will align with Chiron. And so like later into the night on the 21st and then like early in the day on the 22nd, there will be this wounded healer function activated. But the reason that this is much more significant than it normally would be when the moon aligns with Chiron is because when this happens, it's quincunx to the sun, like I did mention before. But let me just see here. That becomes exact. The Chiron sun quincunx becomes exact at 4:21 a.m. And so this will stretch basically throughout the entire day of October 22nd. And let's see what you guys are talking about. Live in Cali, so it's almost always warm there. You're so lucky. Kind of wish that I lived in California, or at least someplace nicer than this, but you know, whatever. All right, so feel like there's one other thing I was going to say before I proceeded. Whatever, we'll get on with it. So the entire day of October 22nd, we're going to have this energy in effect, this Chiron quincunx the sun. So put very simply, I would say this is a frustrating aspect where we may find ourselves wanting to help heal the wounds of other people, but it may not be the easiest thing to do that day. In fact, there may be such tense energy that, like, while it's not awful, there's just things that we can't do anything about that prevent us from doing that. And I guess that would apply to healing our own wounds as well, essentially, you know? So it's like on October 22nd, my strongest theory is that there's no energy that cannot be brought into harmony. And so I would say the challenge, we'll put it that way, look at it this way. The challenge on October 22nd will be to find a way to heal ourselves and others, but don't expect it to be easy, is kind of the advice I would give that day. Not that it's going to be super hard, but with that quincunx, there may be frustrating things that we can't really do anything about that make it that much more difficult to get just right. So it could indeed be a bit tricky. Now, meanwhile, what happens, make sure we're still, oh geez, we're out of focus. Okay. Meanwhile, as all this is happening, right around, looks like 3 a.m., the moon moves into Aries. So the energy shifts again from Pisces, which was all emotional and like mystical and spiritual and stuff like that, to the much more go-getter, fiery, passionate, headstrong Aries energy. And that's going to be for the rest of the day, of course, October 22nd. And so that might play an interesting role in this quincunx that I just talked about involving Chiron and the sun, because there may be an intense desire to push forward with things before we're really ready to. And so I would advise exercising caution at that time on October 22nd. Like, don't dampen your passion, but still be careful not to like jump into things too much or push things too hard on October 22nd, especially when it comes to, you know, healing, basically. What are you guys talking about? California is just overpopulation, poverty, and crime. Don't move here. All right, I'll keep that in mind. Cool. Okay. So, are we blurry again? Wonder if I should. Do you guys think I should put more light on me, or do you think this is good? I can't really make up my mind about that yet. But anyway, let's see what else, anything else is going on the 22nd. Let's see, we already talked about the trine of Jupiter, which is earlier. Okay, the moon will also quincunx Venus a little bit later on the 22nd. We're talking soon after 1 p.m. And so, again, we're talking a quincunx, a frustrating aspect. And so, put very simply, it could be frustrating to get what we want that day, especially in the afternoon hours and like late morning hours. And also frustrating to enjoy the things that we like that day, October 22nd. So far it's looking like October 22nd is shaping up to be a challenging day, but may also be powerful in many different ways. Okay, if we get blurry again, I'll try putting my face closer to the camera. I guess I can move a little bit closer now. And as for the light behind me, that's actually not plugged in, that lamp. It's just kind of there. So, not again. So actually I can't really turn on those lights. Let's see, we're getting stabilize. Oh, come on. Technical difficulties. Okay, there we go. Now back to the astrology. Oh yeah, it's a webcam I'm using. That's all I've got. Well, I mean, I guess I've got my phone and tablet as well, but that wouldn't be very practical for live streaming. So yeah, someone like came in and they left. They like saw the technical difficulties. They're like, I'm out of here. I'm just kidding. I don't know actually. Anyway, anything else on October 22nd before we move on? Let's just take a look. Nothing else I'm really noticing of any real significance. Yeah, believe it or not, this webcam is actually supposed to be really good. Or at least, I don't know, definitely better than a cheap one, but it's also one that I got a freaking long time ago. So I don't know how good it is by today's standards, but it is 1080p. And I don't know, supposedly it's really good. I think I paid $80 for it back then. Thanks, Smokey. I hope you have a great day as well, and hope things are quite delightful there in South Africa, and not too shithole like. And it's funny you say that, Ryan, because I used to have an eyebrow piercing forever ago when I was 18, but then it got infected and I didn't want to deal with that, and so I got rid of it. But that is so funny you say that. It's literally the only piercing I've ever had is an eyebrow piercing. Maybe I should get it pierced again. I don't know. But let's see. Anything else for October 22nd? If there is, it's not jumping out at me. So October 23rd, the moon is still in Aries, so things have that fiery go-getter energy. And guess what? That is then amplified by a sextile to Mars that will perfect just before 10 a.m. So Mars rules Aries, and when we're talking moon sextile Mars, we're talking even more of that energy, basically, or the moon and Aries energy, I would say. We're talking a predisposition or a propensity towards much more aggression, assertion, the possibility of getting angry at things, but also the possibility of great physical energy. Just a lot of intense, immediate energy on October 23rd. I would say all day, but especially in the morning hours and into like the early afternoon. Things will pick up in activity and action on October 23rd. I can almost guarantee it. Let's see here. Okay, we're still in focus. Good, good. So later that day, let's see what else we have. The moon will square Pluto around roughly soon after 2 p.m. that day. So there could be difficult challenges involving the unconscious and the dark sides of ourselves and things like that on the 23rd. But then a little bit later on, in fact, at exactly 5 p.m. Eastern Time, October 23rd, the moon will quincunx Mercury. And so more of this frustrating quincunx stuff. We've got a frustrating connection between our minds, Mercury, and our emotions, the moon. And so it will be difficult to harmonize our mental world with our emotional world on October 23rd, particularly in the late afternoon, early evening. So that's another challenge that day. Again, I would advise, just do your best to use that energy creatively. I would say, especially with this moon in Aries and sextile to Mars stuff going on, part of that challenge might be how much we're wanting to be aggressive and assertive with the world and stuff like that. But I don't want to dwell too much on these trivialities now that we're getting more, sort of towards the later part of the month. Let us instead talk about the more major aspects that will develop around this time. What are you guys talking about? You guys think I'm flawless and dreamy? Well, thank you so much. That means so much. I guess the time that I spent to do my hair before the stream was worth it after all. Cool. And as for that mirror, I mean, hey, you never know. Do you guys want to hear a funny story? I'll only tell you if you want to hear it. Let's see. You do? Okay. So a long time ago, it's not about this mirror, but it's about a mirror. A long time ago, I used this site for a while called Picnic, and hang on, this is distracting the hell out of me. All right, whatever. I use this photo editing site called Picnic, and for their Halloween settings or whatever, blurry. Hang on. Good. Like for their Halloween settings or functions, whatever, they had like different ghosts and creepy things you could insert into pictures. And so I took this mirror selfie in the bathroom, and I was editing it on Picnic, and one of the things I did is ever so subtly, if that's a word, I inserted this image of a sort of like a creepy ghost figure that looks like it's sort of like rising, and just like has this like weird little like face on it, and it also has like a bit of a tail, I guess, it kind of fades or whatever, like it's wearing a long sheet, and it's a very skinny ghostly figure, but a very discernible face. Okay. God, this is so funny to me. I inserted this this image. Why are we blurry? Stop being blurry. Whatever. I inserted this image right next to myself of the ghost, and I uploaded it. I uploaded it to a social media site I was using at that time, and I had edited it in such a way that it was it was fairly well blended in, I guess, the ghostly image. Like you could only kind of make it out. Like you might even miss it if you didn't look at the picture carefully. And someone commented the picture, and he was like, does anybody else see that ghostly image in the mirror? That is freaky as fuck, or something like that. And I just burst out laughing when I saw that, because he literally thought that this freaky ghost image in the mirror was real. Like he literally thought that it was real. At least I think he did, unless he was just pretending to think it was real. But I think he thought it was real, and that was just like the funniest thing ever to me. I think I still have that picture somewhere. Site sounds familiar. I probably use a site with the same functionality once. Monkey Pick, I think, was the one we used. Oh yeah, I've used that. Only I think it's called Pick Monkey. Yeah, like Picnic doesn't exist anymore. It used to back, I don't even remember when, until like 2012 or something. I can't remember, but it eventually went away, and then I found a site called Pick Monkey and used that for a while. I don't know if they're still around or not. I haven't used it for quite a while. Wait, what? Beyond that, my what? I don't know. The site that he found it on, I think, was at that time called My Yearbook, which then changed to Meet Me later on. But I don't use that anymore. I haven't used it in years. But I don't know. It was so hilarious. Like this freaky ghost image in the mirror, and he thought it was literally real. Oh, MySpace. I'm surprised anyone still remembers MySpace, but no. We all remember MySpace. Those of us who are old enough, I guess. No, I used MySpace too, obviously, but no, it was on My Yearbook, which later became Meet Me. Yeah, that just, like, to this day, I can think about that, and it cracks me up. He literally thought that that freaky ghost image in the mirror was real, and it's like, if something like that was real, I think we should be deeply concerned. But anyway, I guess I should try to stay, try to stay somewhat on the astrology topic for those who rewatch this. People are going to get impatient with me. I'm sorry, it's just the way I roll. But anyway, how did MySpace used to find odd genre bands like Horse the Band? Oh, cool. Yeah. I think I recall finding music on it occasionally too, but I don't remember that well now. God, it's been so long. I miss MySpace. I never liked Facebook, like ever. But I feel like when MySpace died, a part of me died with it. I'm kidding, but in a way I'm not. Okay, so we're going to talk about some sort of more significant astrological events now. Beginning with October 23rd at 7:22 a.m. Eastern Time, the sun will move into Scorpio. Scorpio season will begin. And so things are going to move from this nice, sweet, loving, harmonious Libran vibe to the deep, dark, passionate, emotional, intense, all or nothing Scorpio vibe. Now, when this happens, keep in mind we've already got 3 other planets in Scorpio, which are Venus, Mercury, and Jupiter. And so we're already in this intense Scorpio vibe to begin with. When the sun moves into Scorpio, it just gets turned up even more. And what makes this even more intense, okay, this is where things get really interesting, and this ties into the full moon, which I'm going to get into here pretty soon. Right as the sun is moving into Scorpio, later that day, in fact, at precisely 8:46 p.m. Eastern Time, the sun will be opposite Uranus This is an event that only happens once a year. And there are similar aspects, I suppose, that happen a few other times during the year, but this Sun-Uranus opposition only happens once a year, and even the others, it's only a few times a year. This is definitely an uncommon thing. Sun opposite Uranus is like the ego or conscious mind in conflict with all things sudden, shocking, and unexpected. And so I can almost guarantee you on or around October 23rd, something crazy, shocking, unexpected is going to happen, or things of that nature are going to be happening both in the wider world and in our own personal lives. This is especially true if you have planets in your chart aspecting the Sun and or Uranus at that time, or that the Sun or Uranus aspect at that time. And so, like, I guess more advanced students of astrology will know what I'm talking about, and you can compare that, with your own chart and find out. But generally speaking, for the whole world, October 23rd, if some crazy shit's going to happen, look to that day. However, also look to the following day, because this is when we indeed have the full moon, and this full moon is extremely interesting. Wait, blurry. I'm gonna put more light on me in the hopes that that fixes our problems with blurriness. It has for now, at least. The hell is it doing? Maybe it's not going to fix things. Let's see, this conversation is getting too interesting. I guess we just got to work, talk about astrology. I know, right? Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out like what people are most interested in these streams. So, I'm in the experimental phases with my live streams, and whatever people find most interesting is basically what I'm going to continue to do, as long as it's stuff that interests me too. But I have a pretty wide array of interests, fortunately. Let's see here. So I want to give the exact times for these things if I can sort of find them real quick, or at least get close to the exact times. Around 11:30 a.m. October 24th is when the moon will be conjunct Uranus, and so that's already going to activate those sudden shocking events or whatever. But very soon after that, as in very, very, very soon, about 12:30, 12:45-ish, the moon will be full, basically. The moon will be opposite the sun, and that's what a full moon is in astrology. And so when the moon is full, that's already a time of intense things. That's already like intense of a time enough. But to have a full moon conjunct Uranus is crazy. It's definitely a very rare sort of development in all the time that I've been studying astrology. Occasionally something crazy like this will happen. Well, this is one of those things. And I mentioned this on another stream, I remember the other night, this full moon. I'm like, this may very well be a full moon to remember. Well, I indeed say that now, like, because we've got Uranus, the crazy, wacky, weird planet of sudden, shocking developments, lined up with the moon when the moon is full. And so, again, the exact opposition between the Sun and Uranus takes place on the 23rd, and then the moon is full precisely on the 24th. And so, really, it's the 23rd and the 24th, those 2 days, the 23rd and 24th of October, look for crazy shit to happen. And, it could be good, it could be bad, it could be too weird to define as either of those. But I would say if you're concerned about instability, I don't know, those 2 days might be a good time to lay low, so to speak. But if you're not concerned about that, for everyone else, I would say look at it as something exciting. In a positive sense, the 23rd and 24th could be a time of like a breakthrough where things get where I'm not really sure what the right words are. I guess a breakthrough kind of says it all. Where you find a new level in something that you've been trying to get to or whatever, because Uranus' job is to release tension. And so what do you think happens when Uranus is in an aspect of tension to the sun, which represents like the ego or conscious mind? Well, Uranus' job is to release that tension. And so a breakthrough involving the ego or conscious mind, which is all about dealing with outer reality. So yeah, I guess that's about all I have to say about that. October 23rd, 24th. It's going to be one hell of an interesting couple of days. I personally can't wait to see what happens, although I'm also a little bit scared, if I'm being honest. However, actually, there is just one more thing to mention along with all of this stuff, and that is that at the time of this full moon, the sun is also conjunct Venus in Scorpio within about 3 degrees. So they're not perfectly conjunct, but they're close enough that the planet Venus is likely to play a role in all of this. And so this could be breakthroughs when it comes to relationships, romantic relationships or otherwise. It could be a breakthrough when it comes to our likes and dislikes. It could be a breakthrough when it comes to our creativity, when it comes to anything involving beauty, anything involving feminine energy, essentially. So that adds a whole nother element to this mix. And as if that wasn't enough, Venus is in a sextile with Saturn at this time, a harmonious sextile. And so when we have Venus sextile Saturn, that's like the authority Saturn giving its approval to Venus, our likes and dislikes. And so the way I see it is this would be like a time of all the authority in our lives and reality and limitation and stuff like that, basically being like, yes, go ahead. You want that, go ahead. And with Uranus involved as well, these sudden shocking developments, Saturn is basically just like, yes, go right ahead. Yes, you may have this thing that you want. Oh, you want this big thing that you want? You may have it. You want this great big breakthrough? You may have it. Right here, October 23rd, 24th. Probably more especially the 24th, but like around that time in general. And supporting that even more is the fact that the Moon-Uranus conjunction itself is in a trine with Saturn. And so try to wrap your mind around this. Both the Sun and Venus are harmonizing with Saturn in a sextile from their points in Scorpio, and both the Moon and Uranus are also harmonizing with Saturn from their points in Taurus. One is a sextile, which was the former, and then the latter is a trine. So yes, it's like it could be stressful, but there's also a lot of harmony backing it up. And so I don't know. I don't want to say for sure it's going to be, something great for everyone, but it's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting, when Saturn basically gives its approval for these kinds of breakthroughs involving our likes and dislikes. It could be a very delicious time for a lot of people. But if you have a lot of tension in your life, there might also be some stressful resistance you encounter. But even if you do, it's ultimately for your benefit. Uranus breaks up resistance so that more harmony can take its place, essentially. So let's see here. What are you guys talking about? Really? You find it that interesting? Well, I'm very happy to hear that. I hope it's interesting. Wait, sorry, I'm just excited to get more responsibility at work. More responsibility at work. Cool. That's a very Saturnian thing. So let's see, where should we go next? I guess just for the record, the Venus Saturn sextile perfects October 24th at 8:50 a.m. Other than that, I think that's a good place to conclude this part of this stream, talking about the astrology of mid-October, and like I guess if this does well, I can always do another stream like this and talk about the astrology of later in the month. But like to sort of shift forward here, I would like to now talk about some other upcoming astrological events that aren't in the middle of October, but are still very significant and interesting. And then after that, I guess I can open it up more to questions if you guys want, and we'll see where the conversation goes from there. Like I'm up for streaming as long as I can, as long as I can. Let's see. Or blurry. What does determined sectarian mean? I'm not sure what you're asking. Like, is that something that I said, or that sounded something that sounded like something I said? Let's see. There's a delay on here, of course. So let me just take a look at early November real quick, because we're going to go to November 16th. I know that for sure. Okay, you just can't spell it. Determined sectarian. I'm not sure what it was that I said that you mean. I think, I don't know. If you're talking about a sextile, that's an aspect between two planets. The harmonious aspect when they're 60 degrees apart. Other than that, I'm not sure what you mean. But well, I think Saturnian. Yeah, I have no idea. Is it maybe Saturnian? Is that the word I used? But I need to take a little bathroom break, so I'll be right back. And I'll explain what Saturnian means when I return. All right. Okay, I have returned. Swims across pond casually. Cross what pond? Anyway, Saturnian, that refers to the planet Saturn. Like a Saturnian aspect would be an aspect having to do with the planet Saturn. And Saturn represents order and structure, responsibility, stability, security, reality, limitation, things like that. And you might be interested to know that Saturn is also basically Satan and is related to the word in the name Satan. And that ties into the Devil card in Tarot, which ties into all kinds of things that I don't even fully understand yet, but there's a very strong connection between Saturn and Satan and this idea of an opposition and of physical reality having a sort of triumph over, well, in some cases or instances anyway, this idea of physical reality having a triumph over spiritual reality, which I believe in the pentagram seen at the top of the Devil card in Tarot, that's what that is supposed to represent, or the inverted pentagram, I should say. Let's see, what else are you going to say about that? Oh, just that, funny enough, I personally, not only am I a Capricorn, which is ruled by Saturn, but I've got the Sun conjunct Saturn right in the middle of Capricorn. And without going into a lot of detail, that probably basically explains why I am the very dark person that I am, and why I have so many strong Capricorn attributes to my personality, and also could explain my my sort of instinctive rebelliousness, my affinity for defiance, and my general distaste for, I would say, most religions. I guess that's about how I'd say it. I'm glad that I could be of benefit to your knowledge. Yeah, it's very fascinating. I'd like to get into that sometime, maybe just do a whole stream, in fact, on the connection between Saturn, Satan, the Devil card in Tarot, and religion, and just how it all seems to fit together. Like, I don't even fully understand it yet myself, but I can see like the points of connection and stuff like that. There's also this really weird thing with Saturn and all these like ST words, basically. I always use my Scorpio sign as a reason for my dark personality. Yes, definitely. Scorpio and Capricorn, I would say, are the two darkest signs of the entire zodiac. And I'm not really sure which one I would consider darker. Scorpio is very dark. I don't know, maybe they're the darkest, I'm not sure. But yeah, like some of the darkest people I've ever heard of are Scorpios. Your Satanic Bible and see if it's referenced there. I have a copy of the Satanic Bible, and I read it many years ago. I can't recall if Saturn or whatever was referenced or not, but yeah, interesting stuff. But yeah, like there's this thing with these ST words, okay? Because Saturn, this is so weird. This stuff is like built into our language. Like, so Saturn represents all this stuff about like stability and order and structure and all that. Literally, try this for like a fun game or whatever. I guarantee you almost any ST word you can think of that has like ST together in it is going to relate to Saturn in some way. Words like structure, stability, stable. Let me think here. I'm like on the spot, so I'm not thinking of them as fast as I probably normally would. Past, because Saturn ties into this idea of history, and even the word history. Stigma. probably more or less a Saturnian word. Yeah, because yeah, a stigma is something that stays with a person or a thing. Yeah, and even the word stay is another Saturnian word. See, so it's literally built into our language. Hell, even astrology has an ST in it, and for reasons that are, I guess, a bit difficult to describe, astrology is a very typical Capricorn thing, which Capricorn and Saturn go hand in hand. So yeah, if you guys wanted, you could even try right now, like try coming up with ST words and type them in the chat if you want. And I guarantee you virtually all of them will relate to the planet Saturn. It's crazy. Hell, even the word or name Satan, even though the S and T's aren't directly together, still there's an S and T there. Yeah, stage, because of the idea of it being a single platform, like a stable location to perform. I'm going to put even more light on me. Maybe that'll help. Okay. Yeah, stare, because that's something where you're very still. And again, the word still. Yeah, it's very interesting stuff. So it's funny how, like, because a lot of people obviously are skeptical of astrology, and I can kind of understand why. When you don't know a whole lot about it, it can seem like it's not a valid discipline or whatever. But the more you learn about it, basically, the more you realize how much it really does work. And the fact that these words are literally built into our language. Like, this astrological stuff is built into the English language. It's crazy. It's wild. But anyway, let's move on and see what else we can talk about. I'm reading you guys' comments. I used to be, when I was really stuck up atheist, all about science, but I showed out, luckily. Yeah, it's understandable, In fact, my personal opinion on astrology is that it isn't what most people think, which is that the planets in the sky are somehow having an effect on us here on Earth. Instead, I believe that the planets and other objects that we track in astrology are a reflection of just the way our minds work, basically. Now, admittedly, it is quite amazing that where the planets are will reflect what's going on in our minds, but once you learn more about the nature of reality itself, it's really not that surprising, honestly, that things are set up in such a way, because reality is always going to reflect what's going on inside of us anyway. And so, but I do agree, this idea of, like, floating rocks in space affecting us here on Earth does seem kind of absurd, but that's why I say that that's not what's actually happening. There's simply a reflection of what's going on in our minds. So it's like a psychological zodiac is how I would describe it. And I think increasingly that's become the leading astrological theory these days and in recent decades, from what I can tell. Having an inverted pentagram flag on your wall is the most inviting. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Everyone's going to have their own opinions about that. I personally feel no issue or threat whatsoever from Satanists or any satanic imagery. There may be some philosophical differences, I'm sure, that I would have with the typical Satanist, but I don't even know. There's not a whole lot of there's not any real opposition, with what I believe. There's no reason that that I would ever have to feel threatened by them, and also I have to say that I like the fact that if someone's a Satanist, And without going into a lot of things, because this whole subject gets so complicated. But if someone is a Satanist that is sort of based on the like Anton LaVey's Satanic Bible version of Satanism, where essentially the idea is not to harm anyone or yourself, I've got no problem with that person. And furthermore, I like the fact that they're free thinking enough to even be drawn to that kind of ideology, or that kind of I don't know, whatever you call it, Satanism, I guess. Thank you kindly, shouldn't fear us, at least the atheistic ones. You can't speak for theist Satanists. Yeah, that's the interesting thing about Satanism, is like it's extremely difficult to sort of discern this, but there appears to be this whole other like branch of Satanism that like is much darker, and like there is a lot of bad stuff that people do. But then again, I don't know how much of that is real and how much is just like pure unsubstantiated conspiracy theory, basically. It's really hard to tell. I'm a LaVey Satanist. I remember the Satanic Temples already know. Yes, indeed. Yeah, like I've got like, not only do I not have any problem with Satanists like that, but I think it's great that that someone can be free thinking enough to even like adopt that perspective. It may not be my perspective, but I can definitely, I have a lot of respect for it, basically. And I'm sure there's many points of harmony in our beliefs as well. I'm into spiritual Satanism. It's a really peaceful religion, but of course there's a ton of branches of Satanism. Yeah, that seems to be the case. I feel like I could talk about this stuff forever. But I guess we'll try to stay somewhat on topic here with the astrology. Let's see, what was I going to talk about next? I'm just kind of scanning some of the major upcoming aspects here. Well, here, this will be the perfect segue. Speaking of all these satanic and Saturnian things, the Sun will sextile Saturn on October 27th at 10:51 p.m. And so that'll be a great day and a night, and maybe even into the following day, the 28th, for bringing order and structure to all areas of life, and particularly the stuff that we do with our conscious minds, and pretty much any creative endeavor and stuff like that. Just before this, hang on, let me get these exact times right if I can. On October 26th at 10:15 a.m., the Sun will be conjunct Venus. And so when this Sun-Saturn sextile happens on October 27th at 10:51 p.m. Eastern Time, the Sun-Venus conjunction is more or less still in effect. And so we still have this idea of this could take a number of forms, I think. Maybe giving form and structure to our creativity, and approval, a go-ahead for getting what we want, indulging in our likes that night and into the following day, I would say. So things of that nature. So I just want to point that out. I'm going to try to move quickly here until we get to some other rather big stuff. Halloween, October 31st, 12:38 a.m. Mercury moves into Sagittarius. And so moving from Scorpio into Sagittarius, our thoughts are going to go from being all deep and dark and intense in Scorpio to their Sagittarian quality, which will be much more enthusiastic and inspirational and imaginative and, positive thinking and optimistic and stuff like that. This idea that we can do it, we have the power. And as if to, just emphasize this even more, Mercury will be conjunct Jupiter, which rules Sagittarius, and is that same sort of positive thinking, energy when this happens. And there is a grand trine. It's a grand water trine that turns into a grand fire trine as Mercury moves into Sagittarius and the moon moves into Leo. So actually, I wonder if I could just sort of like put this, I'm gonna put the camera on the screen right now, and we'll see if, and I'm gonna pull the stream up on my phone, and I'm gonna see what you guys see for just a moment. And I'm gonna get this sort of set up just right so you can see what I mean here. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get it exactly right or not. Hopefully this was a bad idea. Guerrilla vlogging indeed. Let's just aim this down a little bit. Okay, zoom out. Okay, I think that'll do. So as you can see here, we have this grand trine here between Mercury conjunct Jupiter, Chiron in Pisces, and the moon conjunct the North Node in Leo. So this is some very powerful energy, and like I'm not going to get deep into it here since it's October 31st. I'm just trying to kind of briefly go over the other upcoming astrological events. But this is harmonious energy. It's between Mercury and Jupiter, so we're talking our mind and sense of expansion and optimism. Chiron, so we're talking the wounded healer function, and the moon conjunct the North Node, and so we're talking our moods and emotions, and also our life purpose. The North Node is largely life purpose, I believe. And so, geez, this is crazy. Maybe I should just use the mouse. As this is happening, we have Venus opposite Uranus, and so we have the planet of love opposite the planet of sudden shocking developments. And so basically speaking, you could expect, shocking developments in the realm of love and romance, love life, things like that. And other than that, stuff involving one's likes and dislikes. And Venus is square to the moon North Node conjunction. Uranus is square to it. I mean, this is very intense energy, and it's on Halloween, interestingly enough. And so, like I said, I don't want to get deep into it, but expect this to be one hell of a Halloween and one hell of a, I guess, Devil's Night the day before Halloween, the 30th. And what else did I want to say about this? Oh, they say that the danger with a grand trine is that the energy can be so harmonious that it almost becomes too much of a self-fulfilling circuit or whatever. So, like, be careful, I would say, at this time to not miss any challenges or any issues that you might need to address. Be careful about that. They don't escape your attention and focus, basically. I feel like I'm spending a lot of money just having the opportunity to look at that graph or stumbled upon someone's old D&D book. I'm not trying to make fun, it just looks daunting to me. Yeah, well, I'm glad that you feel like it's that valuable. It's this graph is actually quite the simplification, if you can believe that. This, if I was looking at like my astrology software right now, I'd be looking at much more data than this. This is really just simplifying things, although I know at first glance it does look pretty complicated. This is just like what is called a 0 degrees Aries rising chart. So it's not even complete, if I'm being honest. It's just simplifying things. But anyway, moving on. Let me think here. I know, of course, 16th of November is very interesting. Oh, we should probably note also that Venus does retrograde back into Libra on Halloween at 3:42 p.m. Eastern Time. And you can see it right there. And so when it comes to our likes and dislikes and relationships and stuff like that, it's going to go from the intense passion of Venus being in Scorpio to back to Venus being in Libra, which is much more harmonious and like easygoing energy. And so when it comes to our relationships, from Halloween until, I'd have to look it up, but I think from Halloween until I believe early December, Venus will be in Libra. And when it comes to relationships, things should feel much more lighthearted and much more wanting to seek balance. But Venus will return to Scorpio and won't reach Sagittarius until sometime in January. So maybe I can even find out right here. I'm thinking December 7th for some reason. Looks like it's actually December 2nd. So from Halloween through December 2nd, Venus will be in Libra, and things will have, that more harmonious energy, at least when it comes to our relationships. But, all right. I'm going to turn the camera back on me now because this whole showing the chart thing is driving me crazy. Okay. Thank you so much for liking the broadcast. Someone did that. So the next main thing I wanted to talk about, and this is probably, well, maybe not the last, but one of the last major upcoming astrological events I'll go over, is on November 16th. Because that day, let me go to midnight so I can really say this just right. Maybe it's, hang on. Where the hell is it? Well, Venus basically goes direct either late on the 15th or early on the 16th. Like, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, and the site doesn't want to tell me for some reason. You can hear my mouse clicking. But so Venus goes direct basically early November 16th, right? Well, Mercury then goes retrograde later that day by, let's see if I can find it here, by 8 p.m. So, and as if that wasn't enough, go back to earlier in the day, Mars moves into Pisces at or around, I should say, well, we'll just say like the evening of November 15th. And so halfway through November, what I'm saying, why this is so significant, is Venus goes direct, Mercury goes retrograde, and Mars moves into Pisces all pretty much on the same day, or like within 24 hours of each other. So basically expect November 15th, 16th, especially the 16th, to just be a weird day. The energy's just going to shift like crazy that day in ways that are difficult to describe accurately, I would say, at least without getting into a lot of detail. So yeah, look out. November 16th, it's going to feel, it might be a wacky day, especially with that Mars-Uranus sextile, and Uranus is the wacky planet. So have fun that day. um, yeah, so that's what I'm doing. I really like to multitask when I'm doing these live streams and giving the astrology. Like if I'm not playing a game at the same time, then I can't really focus on the astrology. And so you're absolutely right. I've got a game going right here, right now. I don't know how you figured that out. That's amazing. Yeah, maybe I should just switch it over to the game I'm playing and be done with the astrology. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. You know, I wish I had a more powerful computer so I could basically play games and like record it, or maybe even live stream it, be like a let's player. Like I would totally do that. I do it with Skyrim though, most likely, because I love Skyrim so much. Maybe other games too though. I would absolutely love that. But maybe one day I'll be able to afford a powerful enough computer that can do that. This one can only sort of handle this right now. But anyway, let me see here. Roblox or Minecraft? Now I'm really gonna sound like a noob. I don't think I even know what Roblox is. And as for Minecraft, I don't think I have the patience for that. If I'm being honest, I've only played that once and I got impatient. And yet I have the patience enough for Skyrim, which is funny. All right, let's see. Well, the only other thing that's coming to mind that's like a major astrological event is, funny enough, I'll pull it up in my astrology software here. The day after my birthday, funny enough, January 6th, Uranus goes direct after having retrograded back into Aries. And so there's definitely going to be a significant shift in the energy in early January involving Uranus, which is the planet that breaks things down, releases tension, and has, the sudden unpredictable stuff. Like early January, but since it's an outer planet, it's like you won't necessarily feel it all at once. Like early January into the next couple of months, in ways that are hard to explain, I would say expect a shift in the energy when it comes to the sudden, shocking side of life, the revelations, the insights, and things like that. But what makes this much more significant is that on my birthday, January 5th, so right before this, is a solar partial eclipse. So we have an eclipse, which is typically thought of as to be a time where the lines between the dimensions become blurred, and like the all time exists at once, which they say ultimately it does. And so things from the past and things from the future could come racing into the present moment. It's a time of great change, basically. And so literally on January 5th at 9:28 p.m. Eastern Time, we have this eclipse, and then less than 24 hours later, January 6th at 4:26 p.m., we have Uranus going direct. So an eclipse is a time of great sudden change, and Uranus is the planet of sudden shocking developments. I mean, they're very similar, and they're both activating at the same time. And so, funny enough, it's my birthday. Like, I don't know if this means something intense for me in particular or not, but it certainly means something intense for everyone, at least. January 5th and January 6th, expect those 2 days to be a time where basically anything can happen, where there may be sudden shocking developments, fateful developments, all kinds of stuff. So that is that's like the grand finale for the astrology, for this astrology part of the stream, I guess. So I guess at this point, if you guys want, I can either look up more specific aspects coming up astrologically that I didn't cover in this, like more things like septiles and quintiles for October or whenever, or I can open it up to questions. I can read your astrology charts if you want. You know, whatever you guys want, we can do, basically. So let me know. You're watching this through your $200 Walmart smartphone. Understandable. My phone, well, it's a complicated situation, but the phone I typically use on a day-to-day basis doesn't even have cell phone service to it. And I have cell phone service on another much cheaper phone. So, you know, it's not easy. So yeah, let me know what you guys prefer. Do you just want to ask questions right now? Or do you want to see more astrology? What would you like? Your mom doesn't think that you're a Gemini? Did she say why? Yeah, as I recall, your chart said that you're a Gemini sun and a Pisces moon, which interestingly enough, those are both mutable signs, and any mutable sign is prone to change, very changeable. And so you might be a person who is very changeable and prone to change and stuff like that. Let's see. Speaking of my phone, I'm going to glance at it real quick. You can see I've been streaming for almost 2 hours right now, which is quite good. Like, I want to provide as much useful content as I possibly can to everyone who wants it for as long as I possibly can. Because I'm June 1st, it could mean I'm the type that comes before Gemini. Oh no, June 1st is definitely Gemini. Like 100%. You're not even close to Taurus, which comes before Gemini. Yeah, I know what you mean. Here, I'll even type it in. I think you said you were born in 1994, so I'm just going to type that in and just see what comes up. Yeah, you're literally 1/3 of the way through Gemini. So trust me, you're a Gemini if your birthday is in fact June 1st, like guaranteed. 1994, June 1st, my brother and I. Wait, your brother and you are, wait, so you're like twins then? That's interesting to be twins and born under the sign of Gemini, which is the sign of the twins. Very fascinating. Identical twins. Cool. Yeah, and Gemini is a very interesting sign. Playful, curious, always interested in information, interested in all kinds of data. Ruled by Mercury, as is Virgo, but the issue with Virgo is that they're much more interested in specific information, whereas Gemini is interested in almost any information, or they're much, they just like data, whereas Virgo is very, very particular about the information that they're interested in. Virgo likes to separate what they consider the useful information from the useless information. And Gemini, on the other hand, is just like, I want all the information. So there you go. So any other questions that you guys have? I'm going to go ahead and use my nice astrology software to pull up some other information here, just in case there's anything else that would be worth mentioning that I'm not thinking of right now. see 1 month forecast. Just start it now. You just got a new car? Had to research everything about it. Yeah, that sounds like a Gemini thing to do. Wait, let's make sure that we have the right things checked. Sign ingressions, stationary points. Okay, here we go. I'm almost getting a little bit tired, but I don't want to stop being live. It's too much fun. So I'm staying anyway. See if there's any other major events coming up that I didn't mention. Actually, I'm going to redo this report. I'm going to tell it to only display septiles and quintiles. See if there's anything else here. You have to be very detailed, you're saying, with it. Yeah. Yeah, Gemini is all about all the information. Like if you were a Virgo, I think the difference would be that you would be very, or I mean, who knows, maybe this describes you also, but you would be very focused on the specific details, because that's what Virgo is all about. Virgo is so focused on details that they've gained a reputation in the minds of a lot of people for being nitpickers, for nitpicking a lot, and I guess being also like very OCD, essentially. Whereas Gemini is much more, I guess, relaxed about the information, just likes all the data. Do your chart, Panic? All right, no problem. I just need your birthday and birth time if you have it as well. And I guess if you really wanted to get detailed, you could Google rising sign calculator and fill out that information, and we could go from there. But just give me your birthday and time if you have it, which I think you already said earlier, October 30th. So you can type that in now. 30th, 2002. 3:53 a.m. All right. Let's see. Well, I guess I'm going to assume you were born in California. Like, you don't have to say if you don't want to or not, but or if you don't want to. But I'm going to put 6:53 a.m. since it's going off of my time here. Let's see here. Okay, California, good. And this should be the exact right time. Well, this is quite interesting. Where should we begin? So, you've got the Sun conjunct Venus in Scorpio. Venus is also retrograde, interestingly enough, which means that right now you are, let me just pull up, actually I can just duplicate this tab and then I can look at the current transits as well. Right now you should be experiencing basically a Venus return. Let me get this exactly right. Yeah, you have Venus at 8:30 of Scorpio, and right now Venus is at 8:40 of Scorpio, moving backwards. So literally you're experiencing a Venus return right now, which means that all things Venusian, like all Venus things, are being activated for you right now. So your likes and dislikes, relationships, creativity, things of that nature. I know, right? I love drinking Mountain Dew out of a straw. Supposedly it's better. Supposedly it's better for your teeth. That's what someone told me before, so that's how I always drink it. It's very delicious. Okay, anyway. So, Panic, you're having the Sun conjunct Venus in Scorpio is going to align your ego, your sense of self, with Venusian things, with Venus things. So again, this stuff about like beauty, creativity, the feminine principle, you know, um, your likes and dislikes, you know, it may manifest, I'm not completely sure about this, but it may manifest as you are being someone who is very aware of what you want and what you don't want, of what you like and what you dislike. It might manifest as great creativity, especially as I see that your Sun-Venus conjunction is square to Neptune in Aquarius. And now it is a square, so that might square to Neptune, that could be a bit challenging. Like it might be difficult to sort of get what you want at times or things like that. But when used strategically or whatever, it could be to your advantage in enhancing your creativity, because Neptune is about creativity, also your imagination, and it might tie you in with spirituality significantly and dreams and stuff like that. Now on the negative side, if you didn't have a handle on this energy, it would manifest perhaps as like wanting things now but not being able to have them. It could manifest as Sun square Neptune, that one's a bit tricky. It can manifest basically as like the dark side of the ego, so like impatience perhaps, but I don't know. I guess we'll sort of leave that at that and look at some other areas here. You have both Mercury and Mars in Libra, and so that means that even though you are a Scorpio, you're going to think like a Libra with having Mercury in Libra. And Libra is, of course, all about finding balance and seeking harmony, a very logical sign, a very intellectual sign. And so your thought processes and your communication will likely be very logical, very mental, very balanced, very seeking of harmony, even though your Sun in Scorpio is, interestingly enough, almost the opposite of that, as Scorpios like to go to extremes. They're very much all or nothing. So I would say that your all or nothing tendencies from having the Sun in Scorpio are probably tempered, balanced out by your having Mercury in Libra. And let's see here. Also very important to mention is that you have the Moon in Leo. So as I've said before, to simplify this, my opinion is that this means that you basically are just as much a Scorpio as you are a Leo. You're just as much a Leo as you are a Scorpio, because you have the Moon in Leo. And of course, Leo is very bold, very passionate, very fiery, very much loves being in the spotlight and stuff like that. Loves being the center of attention. And so some, if not all of these things may manifest for you with your having the Moon in Leo, but the Moon also deals with our underlying motivations. And so you're having the Moon in Leo, it's like a lot of the reasons for your actions and the things that you say, think, and do could have to do with Leo energy, with maybe wanting to be in the spotlight, or being bold, being passionate about things. Leos are also very loyal. That's another huge attribute of them. Leos relate to their father a lot, although Scorpios relate to their mother a lot. So I guess you've got like a balance in that area. Let's see here, what else? like, I guess if we really wanted to get a bit esoteric, Leo represents the phase of a development where you're learning and teaching, and so there might be a connection there. Scorpio, on the other hand, represents the phase of a development where you're stripping things down, getting to the bare bones of things, getting to the heart of what really matters. And so I think that's probably also part of your personality. Like there's at least a part of you, if not like your overall sense of self is very interested in getting to what really matters, getting to like the heart of everything. And let's see. Your moon is also opposite Uranus in Aquarius. And Aquarius is Uranus' home sign. So let's see here. You've also got other aspects to Uranus as well. And you've also got a grand air trine that I'm now picking up on. Okay, let me try to unpack this. So your moon being opposite your Uranus is going to activate or make you prone to being different, basically speaking, to being very unique, to standing out from the rest, standing out from the crowd, perhaps having unusual ideas or philosophies or things of this nature. With it being the moon, it might make like your emotions prone to some instability, and it is in opposition, so that could be a bit of an issue. Extremely accurate. Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. But see, what you have in your chart is what is actually called a kite, and it's when you have a grand water trine or a grand trine of any kind. I was just looking at. Never mind. It's when you have a grand trine that also has one of its points opposed to by another planet. I know this is hard to explain. Let me know, like either of you or anyone who's watching, if you want me to put the camera on the screen again, because I will, like if that would make it easier. But basically, you have a grand air trine that, let me just make sure we have all this. Hang on, wait a second. Oh, this oh my god. You're probably thinking like, what is he about to say? No, this is interesting. You have wait, let me just make sure this is right before I say it. To the north, no, to Mars, Uranus to Saturn to Mercury. Okay, you literally have 2 grand air trines in your chart. This is something I've never seen before. I mean, I'm sure it happens from time to time, but yeah, this is interesting. You have 1 grand air trine from Neptune to your north node to Mars and then back to Neptune, and then another one with Uranus, from Uranus to Saturn to Mercury and then back to Uranus. So without getting into a lot of detail, because that is a lot of stuff, and then you also have, of course, the moon in Leo opposite your Uranus in that grand air trine. To sort of simplify all of this, having this many planets in air signs means that you're going to be very much a person of the intellect, like using the mind a lot. And so that might sort of balance out the emotional side of your Scorpio sun, basically. Because Scorpio, has that deep, dark emotion energy to them. But you have so much stuff in air signs that I would say that probably balances you out a lot and makes you much more inclined to think logically and to see things in a much more mental as opposed to emotional light, I suppose. And let's see here. The fact that you also have Mercury and Uranus in air signs, and in, as part of one of these grand air trines, means that even more you're likely to be very much of the air element, a very logical, you know, clear-minded person, basically. So there's a lot of things that I could say here, but one of the most important that's striking me now, going along with that, is that, so one of your grand air trines is between Mercury in Libra, Uranus in Aquarius, and Saturn in Gemini. And Mercury is a lower octave of Uranus. So anytime you have those two harmonizing, it's like having almost the same, or it's having very similar energies working together, and that's in your chart. And it's just Mercury is much more like the mind and can also be a bit mischievous and stuff like that. Uranus is much more the great insights, the great revelations, and also, of course, sudden, shocking, unexpected developments, things like that. So I would say that's very significant. And what else do we have here? Now, in your other grand air trine, that's between Neptune and Aquarius, the North Node in Gemini, and your Mars in Libra. So theoretically, that's going to tie in your life purpose with stuff relating to primarily Neptune, which is the realm of the imagination and dreams and stuff like that, and also Mars, everything having to do with aggression and assertion, the masculine energy. But then your North Node is also quincunx to your Sun conjunct Venus in Scorpio. And of course, Venus is the feminine principle. And so we also have to admit that your life purpose, in this life at least, is probably connected to this idea of having your sense of self being so connected to the feminine principle. Hope all that makes sense. So I guess basically put, your life purpose in this life is connected to both masculine and feminine energy intensely, but your sense of self is much more aligned with the feminine energy than it is the masculine. So now the North Node quincunx with your Sun Venus conjunction, with that being a quincunx, there is of course that implication that it's going to be frustrating to harmonize those energies. It might not be the easiest, like getting, how do I say this? Getting your sense of self being connected to Venus and the feminine principle to harmonize with your life purpose, like being able to apply those feminine attributes. And I'm saying that energy wise, I'm not making any, male or female judgments here. I'm saying feminine attributes as in Venus things, as in creativity, beauty, likes and dislikes, love, even romance, things like that. Getting that to cooperate basically with your life purpose may be like a frustrating challenge, but it is something that, if you accept my theory, that you set up for yourself very intentionally to overcome, to be able to harmonize those energies. On the other hand, getting the masculine energy with Mars, and so we're talking assertion, aggression, and those sorts of things, other Mars things too, but I'm not sure how applicable they are. Getting that to harmonize with your life purpose is much easier in this life. So again, assertion, aggression, and masculine energy, I would say. So there's that. Now, your Jupiter, this is quite interesting. Your Jupiter is at 1611 of Leo, and your Pluto is at 16:0 of Sagittarius, that is a near perfect trine. And so this could manifest in a number of different ways. Some things I would say would be that, first of all, it's a harmonious aspect, and it's between Jupiter, which is expansive, and Pluto, which is deep and dark and rules Scorpio, in fact, but you have it in Sagittarius, as does anyone who was born like from like the mid 90s until like the mid 2000s or something like that. I'd have to look it up to be sure. But so Jupiter trine Pluto is like a magnification of all things that are powerful, all things that are all or nothing, all things that are dark and Scorpio-like, which of course is only augmented by your, in fact, being a Scorpio. It's an awareness of deep psychological processes, and you might even find yourself really attracted to knowledge, because Jupiter is knowledge about Pluto things. So psychology and dark things in general, spiritual things, digging deep into yourself, things like that. Let's see here. How's the stream doing? Just go back here real quick. All right. And let's see. Is there anything else I can say with that? Just basically that I would say with your having the Sun conjunct Venus in Scorpio and Jupiter trine Pluto, you've got some stuff amplifying the dark side of your nature. I would say. Now let's see. Is there anything else that is major that I should talk about right now? I mean, if you want, I could go on, but that's basically a good summation of your birth chart. So I hope you enjoyed. And if you guys have any other questions or anything, feel free to ask. Okay, good. I think that's the value of astrology is once you understand more about your birth chart, you can understand more about like who you are and like what you had in mind maybe for this life. And that can be beneficial in many different ways, Like with my being a Capricorn and having the Sun conjunct Saturn in Capricorn, I already know just from that I'm going to be very much in harmony with and maybe even meant to do things that are Capricorn-like, and astrology is in fact one of those things that Capricorns very much like to do. So yeah, I always look for the value in these things. Like, it's not just about reading people, it's also about like helping people understand themselves better and understand what they're really all about. And that just has like innumerable benefits, I would say. So let's see, where could we go now? Well, I mean, I don't want to close this out, but I guess if we run out of things to talk about, I'll just end the stream. Unless you guys have any other questions or anything. Glance at my phone real quick. Although actually, I was going to go over some of these other more rare aspects that are coming right up. Basically, let me just see what we have here, because this is potentially some interesting stuff. These septiles and quintiles. Let's see, October 18th, the Sun will triseptile Chiron, 12:43 a.m. So it's coming right up. So, Sun triseptile Chiron, late on October 17th, early October 18th. When that occurs, we're looking at fateful events involving our ego in connection with our wounded healer function. So, trying to heal other people's wounds in order to heal our own, but something fateful, some significant event happening with that on the 18th. And let's see, I'm not going to read all of these because there's like a long list of them, but ooh, here's an interesting one. On October 22nd at 6:50 a.m. Eastern Time, Jupiter triseptiles Uranus. So a fateful development involving Jupiter, the expansive, optimistic part of us, the part of us that is about knowledge, with Uranus, sudden, shocking developments. And so, funny enough, that goes right along with what we were talking about earlier. I think it was on the 23rd and 24th with the full moon. So we might be able to extend that to like October 22nd. There could be some fateful developments, I am in fact saying, on October 22nd, as well as the 23rd and 24th. So it's going to be an interesting couple of days, basically. Okay, I got to go to bed, so I'll see you later. My name's Ash, by the way, so you know me more than just by my username. Thanks for the chart reading. All right, thank you so much for watching, Asher, and it's been very nice having you here. Nice to meet you, or see you again. And hope you sleep well, and you're very welcome. So have a great night. So back to the astrology chart here, the chart of upcoming events, that is. On October 27th, Jupiter will septile Pluto. This is also pretty big. This will perfect at 8:14 p.m. And so we're talking, again, fateful developments, but this time between Jupiter, the expansive part of us, and Pluto, deep, dark part of us. So the 27th, another day where something big might happen, but this time of like a darker nature. But with Jupiter's involvement, maybe somewhat more optimistic, expansive element as well. What else is big and significant here? Saturn triseptile the North Node on November 1st, perfects at 10:01 p.m. So we could be looking at fateful developments involving our life purpose, stuff like that. And then Saturn, which septiles are related to Saturn, basically. And maybe I can get into that sometime, or try to get into that. And Saturn itself is quite fateful. And so fateful developments involving our life purposes on November 1st. And then, let's see what else. Okay, it looks like Uranus retrogrades back into Aries, as I mentioned briefly earlier. That perfects on November 6th at 2:58 p.m. Eastern Time. Jupiter moves into Sagittarius on November 8th at 8:38 a.m. And on November 12th, we have a Jupiter-Neptune biseptile at 8:43 a.m. So that's going to be fateful developments involving the spirit realm and the realm of imagination and creativity and stuff like that, and Jupiter, so expansiveness, positive thinking, knowledge, things like that. Then let's see. Then of course Mars moves into Pisces, as I mentioned earlier, November 15th at 6:20 p.m. Eastern Time, and that's basically the major upcoming septiles soon, and some other things there. I mentioned the sign ingressions that I have active. So, well, it's been fun, but I think I've pretty much gone over everything. I'm kind of like not sure what else to talk about. So I think I'm going to bring this stream to an end. Thank you so much for watching, and anyone who watches the saved copy of this on my channel, thank all of you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope people found this valuable. And I hope you all have a great astrological day and week and month and year. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all later.